All right, welcome back, everybody, to LANFest Colorado, and we are raising funds to support the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And I'm excited for the next hour. I am joined by Executive Director Chief Ron Sarnecki and Director of Fire Service Programs Chief John Tippett. Welcome, guys, to the event here and to the stream. We're excited to have you. Just to give everybody a little background of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, it was Congress created the foundation to lead a nationwide effort to honor America's fallen firefighters. Since 1992, the nonprofit foundation has developed and expanded programs to fulfill that mandate. The mission of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation is to honor and remember America's fallen fire heroes and to provide resources to assist their families in rebuilding their lives and work within the fire service community to reduce firefighter deaths and injuries. The foundation provides travel, lodging, and meals for immediate family members of fallen firefighters being honored. This allows families to participate in family day sessions conducted by trained grief counselors and in the private and public tributes. When a firefighter dies in the line of duty, the foundation provides families a place to turn. They receive emotional assistance through a fire hero family network, which matches families with similar experiences and circumstances. So this is just a fantastic and timely foundation that is helping firefighters across the nation. And through the media and everything like that, everybody should be aware of the fires out on the West Coast and throughout Colorado itself, where these guys are located. We are just excited to have them here. And both Chief Executive Director Ron and John have been providing these type of services for years and years. If you scroll down on the stream, you'll see donation buttons that you could donate. We've already raised over $1,100 for this foundation, and you could also go to their website to donate there. It's firehero.org. I'm excited to just welcome these guys to the stream. And we'll start off with you, John. How are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing fine. I'm coming to you from Emmitsburg, Maryland, where the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial is located. This would normally be the weekend where we honor the fallen from the previous year. The pandemic has certainly put the kibosh on that, but we still have some activities going on to let the families know that we're thinking about them.
Fantastic. Found that. Fantastic. How about you, Chief Sarnecki?
Well, Dan, thanks for having us today. And I'm actually home in Maryland on the Eastern Shore is where I live. Our offices, as John said, our main office is in Emmitsburg, which is about 15 miles south of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, just over the Maryland line. And then our satellite office is in Crofton, Maryland, which is just on the eastern side of Washington, D.C. And I'm excited to be here. The weather's nice. I would love to, see some of this exciting gaming that's going on. I checked in earlier a little bit to see what was happening. I heard there's some great events coming up over the next couple of hours, and we're just excited to be a part of this. And we truly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are taking questions. So if you want to ask these guys any type of questions about gaming, about what they do, we have some questions that we've generated that we're going to be asking. But if you want to participate, don't be shy about sending some questions in through the stream, and we will get the question. Ask these guys anything that's on your guys' mind, from gaming to firefighters, about their organization or anything like that. Just don't be shy to ask those questions, to ask any questions you want. I'm going to start with you, Executive Director Sarnecki, about how many firefighters and their families are impacted each year that you guys help.
So unfortunately, in our country, around 100 firefighters die in the line of duty each year. Now, there's a variety of reasons that occurs. There are the structural fires in which there's a collapse a traumatic death involving an explosion. We've probably seen some of those, some of the video clips in LA and other places where that's occurred. Of course, there are firefighters that unfortunately get trapped in wildland fires, which is a big issue out in Colorado. Cardiovascular incidents is one of the major events that cause firefighter deaths. That's heart attacks, vascular ruptures, strokes. A lot of that is due to the stressors of the work that we perform and the elements related to temperature, elevated body temperature and other components. And then there are the other factors, the occupational illnesses. We're seeing an increased number of cancers within the fire service, not only from the byproducts of combustion, the carcinogens and the smoke and debris that is in a structure after it's been burned, but also the increased numbers of chemicals that are being used within our everyday life. And so the number of cancer cases continue to grow and cause a unfortunate effect on the firefighters across our country. And then the other element that we're still dealing with is World Trade Center disease. When our country was attacked on September 11th in 2001, we had destruction at the Pentagon, of course, destruction in New York City, and then, of course, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The biggest piece is all the debris that was left at Ground Zero in New York and the months and months of recovery efforts that were going on there. A lot of firefighters, construction workers, police officers, other first responders were exposed to that. And now, we had 343 firefighters die that day, a large number of police officers. But we've had almost that many, almost 300 firefighters die since 9/11 from World Trade Center disease. And
Wow.
so we're seeing that continue to be an issue that haunts us.
Got it. So over 100 a year across many different platforms and reoccurring things from 2001 up to the fires that we're seeing now in 2020. That is absolutely fantastic. We got a couple questions through the stream. So Chief Tippett, we're going to ask you some firefighter direct questions that we're getting. How heavy is the suit that the firefighters wear when they charge in? About how many pounds do they have on their backs?
Well, it depends on how much extra equipment they're taking with us, but it can range anywhere from 75 to 150 pounds of extra equipment added to the weight of the firefighter. So the breathing apparatus that they wear is about 35 to 40 pounds. The helmet can weigh 2 to 3 pounds. The coat, boots, and pants are somewhere in the 10 to 20 pound range. And then once you add the tools that a firefighter carries with them, that's when you really start adding up the weight.
Wow, that is something else. And I'm going to ask this next question to both of you. And we'll start with you since you just went there, Chief. What has been your happiest moment while out on a call through your illustrious career?
Well, I'd have to say that I had the great opportunity when I was a company officer to deliver a baby one night on a call.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
It was a very exciting time. I'm the father of 5 and the grandfather of 6. But I do have to say that through the course of my entire career, the most rewarding event that I can remember was being able to deliver that baby. For some reason, everybody else on the call didn't seem to be so excited about it, but I was happy to take care of it and actually carried through the whole event with a language barrier. The mom and the dad were Hispanic. They didn't speak any English. My Spanish was not the best, but it was enough to communicate, and I can still vividly remember bringing that little life into the world, and what a joy that was.
Wow, that must have been something that you will never forget ever. That must
Yeah.
have been a powerful moment for them as well in that type of
Yep.
environment, in a kind of a very stressful situation to bring a baby into the world. That is amazing. How about you, Chief Sarnecki?
Well, there are a variety of incidents I think that we as first responders deal with. And unfortunately, when we get called, it's somebody having their worst day. And
Yeah.
for me, the best parts of the job have been when we've been able to take that negative situation and turn it into a positive. And one of the ones that stands out for me was when I was a station officer near the District of Columbia line in Prince George's County, Maryland. And we responded for a call for a flooded basement. And we got to this house. It was a two-story wood frame, fairly old structure, and the back door had actually rotted away from the water that was running through the yard over the years and filled the house up, the basement with water, and took out the furnace. What we didn't know was on the first floor was an 81-year-old woman who was a double amputee living in this house. It was winter. There was no heat. The windows had been broken. There was plastic over them, and she was just living in just this tremendously awful environment. And so we began to help her, not just myself, but the department. We had a program called Christmas in April, where we would go out and do programs to help fix houses and help people have a better life. And we brought that group together out of the normal cycle and did some repairs to the house, but realized that it just wasn't going to work. And so we were able to facilitate her getting into a senior living facility, a mid-rise structure just a couple blocks away. So she still had all of her friends. She still could have her family come visit her, but she didn't have to worry about the house and maintenance or any of that. And she lived for another 9 years with those friends. And we would visit with her on a regular basis, and stop in and see how she's doing. And she continued to talk about that God had sent us there that day when the rains had taken out her heat, and the fire service came through to help her. And that's above and beyond. For years we interacted with her, and those are the things that make the job special. As John said, delivering a baby, bringing a new life in, but
Wow.
it's helping people. That's why we get into this business, this industry, is to help and make things better as best as we can.
Absolutely. 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 Well, just so everybody knows on the stream, Chief John Tippett has had a 44-year career in fire service. So I'm going to throw this question at you first, this one at you, John. And the question is this: uh, have there been times when the fire went the wrong way, where firefighters got stuck? And how do you get them out? How do you manage that if winds come up, or if all of a sudden the fire turns course and traps people? How do you guys methodically work your way to get those firefighters out, to protect them, and what to do if things go haywire when coming into these situations or these fires?
Well, that's a great question, and the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation picks people up after those things don't go so well. But in the course of the fire service, we do train or try to train for as many of those events as possible. Nearly every fire that we go to is out of control when we get there, a true working fire. And it takes time and energy and effort and training to get things in place so that you can bring the fire under control. I have very limited experience in the wildland community. I have fought some grass fires and fires in wooded areas that just pale in comparison, and actually did get caught in a woods fire one time as a firefighter early in my career, which was probably one of the more frightening moments of my life. Um, and I would just have to say that of the wildland firefighters I've spoken to, they pay attention to the weather, they pay attention to the fire conditions, they do their best, but the fire definitely has the upper hand for the longest time. Um, in the structural world, we have a crew on scene that is designated strictly to save the firefighters in case they get in trouble. It's called a rapid intervention team. And their sole job is to look at what's going on with the fire and then plan for that undesired event. So when a firefighter gets in distress, they make a call by radio, and then that rapid intervention team goes to work to try to rescue them. So they find the best way to access the house or the structure or wherever the firefighter is, take the steps necessary to make the building safe, and then they go in and pull the firefighter out. In the wildland community, they have shelters that they can deploy as a last resort, but they try to pay close attention to the wind and the weather so that they don't get caught in those situations in the first place.
Wow. That is amazing work. We didn't realize that there was a kind of a team inside of a team
Right.
in those type of environments to look out for everybody, and I take it it's just like anything else. Everybody goes out, you bring everybody home in those type
Yeah.
as firefighters, just like parts of the military or police officers or any other service providers, you wanna bring your people home, the first responders home.
That's our goal.
Got it. Ron, what makes a great chief? What are the
Well,
qualities that you need to have to be a good chief in the firefighting community?
there's a couple of things. First of all, you have to be able to deal with people. That's a critical factor. You have to have those traits to be able to communicate, to resonate what it is that you're trying to get accomplished as a team. And also, the other piece is having the strength to say, this is what we're going to do, this is the direction we're going, and now let's go do it. Leadership is what it's all about. And those skill sets get developed over time, especially in the fire service. As people progress up through the ranks, they take on additional levels of responsibility and levels of authority. But the critical piece is being able to listen and assess and then be willing to acknowledge the information coming into you, which may be different from your opinion a little bit, but understanding that everybody has a set of eyes and a set of ears, and they're looking at things and they're digesting the scenarios, and it's good to take that additional input in. But at the end, oftentimes the decision falls on you, whoever that chief is, that leader, and you have to make that call. And then you have to assess the situation, see if the direction you're going is accurate, and then maybe reassess and adjust as you go. Be willing to adjust as you go. But the critical factor is being able to deal with people, and
Got
that's
it.
no matter what profession you're in, what industry you're in, whether it's running, the streaming efforts on the internet, to a fire service entity, to a business. You have to be able to deal with people. You have to be able to communicate. You have to get a feeling of understanding of what they're trying to tell you and what you're trying to relay to them, and then you balance that. You balance that in a way that isn't offensive, that isn't detrimental, but has the best interest of the organization at heart. And that's tough. That's a critical piece, but that's tough.
Absolutely, and your work that the foundation is doing is taking those moments when families are in distraught after the loss, and helping the not only the families but the firefighter community rebuild in those moments. And the skills to make a good firefighter chief, like you're saying, apply to any other industry that's out there, and even more so with the work that you guys are doing to help the fallen firefighters. The over 100 a year that you guys, where you help the families, the communities involved, to rebuild in not the best of times, when not only with fires but with people that have lost their lives during that type of situation, which is just fantastic. Don't forget, folks, to scroll down and donate, give of yourself to these guys. Are doing fantastic, or the organization is doing fantastic work. About 40 people are on the payroll for the foundation, and they're just doing this amazing work. John, I'm going to kick another question over to you from the stream here. What is the most meaningful thing that someone can do to help a firefighter that people might not realize as a first responder?
Oh, that's a tough one, because there are most of the people that I've known throughout the course of my career don't think about the job or the performance of the work in a sense of a return. I would say if people could take care of themselves and take care of each other, that would certainly make our jobs easier, because a fire that doesn't start doesn't put a firefighter at risk. A person that sees a piece of fire apparatus coming down the road with its lights and sirens, if they will just move out of the way so the fire department can get through. Those are the kind of things that I think they can do. If they can just think about what they could do to make the situation better in the long run would be helpful. Take care of their homes to the best of their ability, minimize their fire hazards. If you're in the wildland and you're in that wildland urban interface area, pay attention to things like defensible space and making your home as fire safe as possible, so that if a wildfire does break out, it burns around you and not through you.
Ron, a little bit of a follow-up on that is what can people, people want to go out to the firehouse. Is there something they should or shouldn't do to thank firefighters out there? What is the best way for the community to engage and be supportive of the fire community in their communities? What is is there a protocol or best practices that you could offer folks if they wanted to, go to their neighborhood fire station and just say hello or just check in or just say, hey, thank you for being in our community and helping us out?
Well, I think you touched on a couple key points there. The fire service loves to be able to interact with the community. And really, for a fire department to be successful, they have to be engaged as a part of the community. They can't just have a structure with the bay doors closed and the parking lot fenced in and don't interact with the community. That is a critical component because we're all kind of living in the same area and we're all servicing each other. And for the fire service, oftentimes it's tax rolls for paid departments, or it is donations by community people for volunteer departments that provides the funds that make the departments function. And then in return, the fire service needs to be cognizant of the needs of the community and help them, as John said, to understand some of the prevention pieces, smoke alarms, exit drills from the home, having carbon monoxide detectors, residential sprinklers, all these things that'll make their home safer so that there are less incidents in which the fire department is called and ultimately less occurrences where firefighters are injured or die. But it's a two-way street. And so the public needs to understand what the fire service does. We hear that often. Why did they break all the windows in the house? Or why did they kick the front door down? Or why did they damage this? Well, time is of the essence when something is burning. And so there are techniques for the removal of those byproducts of combustion we talked about a little bit earlier with the cancers, a way to reduce that heat inside that structure, the way to apply water so that the fire is extinguished quicker and more effectively, causing less damage to the home. But also on the flip side, the fire service has to be cognizant of you are entering into someone's domicile, somebody's home, and there are elements in that home that can't be replaced. The family heirlooms, the pictures of great granny and granddad, and all those things that are just memories relative to that family unit that need to be protected and preserved and as best as possible. And so that element is that two-way street. The best thing I could say is to become an educated consumer. And I mean that from the standpoint of the public is kind of paying the freight, whether it's through donations or whether it's through taxes or whatever it might be. So understand the fire service, how it works. Why do they have those loud sirens and why do they blow those air horns and why do they weave in and out of traffic? All those things that sometimes aggravate people, but having a better understanding of that. And then on the flip side, the fire service needs to be cognizant of the community's needs. That's why they put in speed humps because unfortunately children get hit on streets by civilian cars, and so there's elements related to traffic flow that affect the delivery of services. But the bottom line is it goes back to that leadership piece, that communication. The firehouse should open up their doors and have a community day a couple times a year, invite the public in, and vice versa. And I think that being involved in town meetings, homeowners associations, and other activities that gather the community and the fire service together will make the world a better place. And it will have a better understanding of what public safety is all about.
Perfect. And John, follow up to that. Would you say if people stopped by and said thank you or just waved or said, hey, I appreciate you all being in our community or stopping by a firehouse, is that something that's encouraged or is that something that we wouldn't want people to do?
Well, we certainly encourage that, and that will typically make a firefighter's day when somebody just waves or says thanks. We're in a really difficult time right now with the pandemic, and a lot of fire stations have backed off of station visits because we don't. We're running calls for people that have the disease, and we don't want to give it to the community. So once everything settles down a little bit, but there are certainly opportunities for people to wave when the truck goes by or wave when they go by the station if they see the firefighters out front. A honk and a wave means a lot.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and a great memory for all all service providers. Sometimes a wave and just a simple smile and a simple "Hey, thanks for being out in the community for us" is a big deal and can turn someone's day. Especially in some of the work that you guys are doing when you're dealing with maybe some stressful situations for families or communities that have lost a firefighter in their community, and it's nice for the others to get some peace of mind or some healing. It might help people heal through tragedy. You never know what people are going through across the board. Wow, we got a lot of questions coming through the stream here. I'm a little bit backed up, so we're going to get going here with some more here. Ron, I'm going to kick this one over to you first. How can people help the firefighters and your organization the most? What can they do? What can the gaming community do, or any part of the community do to help the foundation?
Well, I think that for us, the biggest piece is what you're doing now with the donations. To be quite candid, we are a nonprofit, 501c3 with the internal revenue, which means basically we can thank people for their donations. They're tax deductible. But the reality is, all the programming that we do and all the services we do, we have to raise the money to deliver them. And so we look at donations, we look at corporate partnerships, we look for grants, we look for any type of funding streams to be able to assist those families of those fallen firefighters. And so, yes, the financial component is critical. It's the survival of any association, nonprofit organization that's out there. But the other piece is raising awareness, telling people about who we are and what we do, sharing that information. I tease about it. I often talk to our corporate partners, and this is definitely old school, and I'm an old guy, but open up your Rolodex. Now, some of your gamers might not have a Rolodex or know what that might be today. I joke about that, but that's whatever your Outlook, whatever you use that has that list, and make introductions. Maybe some of your gamers work for a large company that has a corporate match program that if they donate today and they turn it into their supervisory chain when they go back to work on Monday and say, "Hey, look, we donated to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. Would your company match it?" And so that's a piece of that double give back, if I could say that. For us, we have those 103 firefighters that we would have been honoring tomorrow had the National Memorial Service occurred, is 103 more families that we have to deal with. And right now, we're dealing with about 4,000 families across the country, including all the territories, and providing support and assistance long term. Now, some of that might just be a note card once a year, and other ones, it might be things like helping with financial planning or life skill training or scholarships to go back to school and get an education because now that family unit has lost their firefighter who's often the main breadwinner of the organization. And so then now all of a sudden the family's got to survive without that. And we see that, especially when you look at the communities, we're talking about the communities rallying around a firefighter death. In the structural firefighting world, which is, the fire station in a community responds to a designated area when there's an emergency. That firehouse and those firefighters often live in that community or that surrounding area and are a part of it. But in the wildland world, which is another element that we deal with, those firefighters are traveling from other states. They may get deployed from another part of the country. And so then you have the issue of a firefighter who dies in a wildland fire, and the fire may be in Colorado, but he might be from Georgia or she might be from Florida. And now
Yeah.
you've got that whole element of, one, getting the firefighters' remains back to the family, but then doing all that support to that community that had no comprehension because they didn't see the fire. They didn't experience the fire. It wasn't their next door neighbor's structure that burned. And so that's part of that awareness piece that helps people have a better understanding of who we are,
Yeah.
what we do, why we do it, and why we need those resources in order to make it better. And that's really what it's about.
Got it. John, a follow-up to that is this. Can you give a specific example of something in the recently, no names, of course, but of a situation, of a specific example of maybe a fallen firefighter that you've helped or their family in the last stretch of time? Can you give any specific example?
Certainly, I think probably one of the most successful places where we impact is in the scholarship program. We have some very generous donors, and efforts like this will help that as well. But we take we take the children of a firefighter who's fallen, and we help them fulfill their dreams, the things that they outlined or had in mind before the firefighter was lost. And we just recently did a survey of some of the scholarship recipients and found that they had fulfilled their dreams. Some had gone to advanced degrees. They had carried on with their lives as their firefighter father or mother would have wanted them to do. And had it not been for the generosity of people that contribute to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, that person may have been left without any means to be able to do that. And their lives could have turned out a lot different. But we're able to help people see their lives get back to as normal as possible without the love of that lost firefighter.
Absolutely. Man, just amazing work. All right, we got a question for both of you. You guys are looked at as firefighters and the work that you guys are doing as heroes. Who are your heroes? Ron, let's kick it to you first. Who are your heroes? Who inspires you?
I think that for me, and I don't, I've been a firefighter for almost 50 years, but I don't really consider myself that hero. We don't look at ourselves that way. John can probably share that same thought. But what I see is for me, the biggest group of people are out there that are ones that are taking care of children in a variety of fashions. Everything from daycare providers all the way up to teachers, guidance counselors. They are making a difference in the future of all generations of our country, of our community. And I have a friend whose wife is a school teacher, and she has to provide her own school supplies for the kids. Because I'm not even going to get into politics
Yeah.
or government or taxes or any of that. I'm going to leave all that alone. I want to say that she's got kids and some of them are special needs, and when the community has to go out and do care packages so kids can go to school, these teachers are out there struggling to make all that work, often on their own backs of their wallets. And for me, they're heroes. They go in that classroom every day and they deal with challenges, and in the fire service, yes, we respond to a person's worst day, but we go in, we do what we got to do, put the fire out, take the person to the hospital, and oftentimes, we don't hear much more after that. The people kind of go back to their level of normalcy and back to life, and whatever that might be, and in the long run, like with the lady that I talked about earlier, there are some cases that we stay engaged for a long, long time. But you think about teachers and other educators and people that take care of kids, they've got that child, for 18 years, and they're helping them become viable citizens and contributors to our community, and we need more of that. And I see that, when I worked in Prince George's County, it was a pretty diverse uh, population. We had almost 800,000 people in Prince George's County, and everything imaginable from agriculture at one end to heavy industry. and people from all walks of life. But those children need the opportunity to be able to compete. They need to be able to have skill sets to be able to fend for themselves and care for themselves. And that's a concern about this COVID thing and these kids trying to stay at home and learn. And I worry about that. I think others do as well. Are they going to get the skill sets they need to be productive down the street? So those are my heroes.
Absolutely. What about you, John?
Well, I'd like to echo just about everything Ron says. Right from the very opening comment about the perception of firefighters as heroes, that's a tag for somebody else. Since he went ahead and talked about teachers, I'd like to throw a pitch out there for the people in the medical field that are working to do things like cure COVID and curing cancer. Those scientists and researchers that are working away in those laboratories that we'll never see, that we don't know about, that are just, and some of them spend their entire lives. Dr. Fauci comes to mind. I mean, he has spent his entire life trying to overcome infectious disease. Never heard of the man until all this COVID pandemic broke out, and he's working in a lab area that I would drive past just about every day, going back and forth to work. Sometimes when I was in Montgomery County, that the man never asked for anything other than to be able to go to work and do his job, and that's the kind of stuff I think that inspires me. That there are people out there that are not giving a second thought about whether or not their work is recognized, but they're working as hard as they can every day to preserve lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, we got a lot of questions coming in through the chat. Love it, love it, love it. And this is going to go to both of you. Did you always want to be a firefighter? And Ron, let's start with you.
Yes. The simple answer is yes. I grew up in a small town just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a small steel mill town. And my dad was a charter member of the local volunteer fire department, which meant he helped form it. My mom was a charter member of the auxiliary, which was the support group for the firehouse. So I grew up at the fire station. I was there almost every day. And that was just our lifestyle. It was a small community. The firehouse was the center of community activities. It provided meeting space for community events. There were weddings, there were funerals, there were activities at the social hall. It was the center of life in our small town. And so I immediately got indoctrinated into the fire service. And it was interesting because when I was in high school, you have a guidance counselor, most schools do, and they're trying to get me into looking at all these different careers and these different avenues. And I knew what I wanted. And I told them that I want to be a firefighter. Well, you need to do this and you need to try to do that. And I went to college for a couple of years, and I had a great time. I took up time and space for 2 years. I like learning, ran out of money, back home, went to work in a steel mill till I got hired in 1978 by Prince George's County Fire and EMS, which is what I wanted to do to begin with. So I spent 4 years in that transitional mode. But I must say that once I got hired by Prince George's, I went back and finished my degree, got not only my bachelor's, but my master's degree, which helped me in that leadership piece and that element of achieving chief in Prince George's County. So I'm a firm believer in higher education, but I'm also a firm believer in following your passion. Follow what you love. And I knew from the very beginning, this is what I wanted to do in my life. I had a lot of people try to tell me other things, but what I wanted to do. And I have no regrets about my involvement and my ability to be in the fire service.
I can't not ask this as a follow-up, which is, and we appreciate your answer there. How long did it take you to grow the mustache? Gotta ask.
How
long?
For a while.
It's fantastic. Got some good chatter on the stream about your mustache. People are enjoying that. How about you, John?
It took 2 years to get the handlebar, the sidebars here, I guess you could say, but it's awesome.
That's awesome. How about you, John? Did you always want to be a firefighter?
Always, yeah. From as far back as I can remember, and as far back as I can remember my parents telling me, it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I had the very good fortune that the year I turned 18 was the year that the fire department in my community had lowered its hiring age to 18. So um, I turned 18 in January of my senior year in high school and was allowed to take the test. When I graduated from high school in June, I had walked through the rest of the steps. And unlike Ron, who had to wait a couple of years to get an opportunity to get in there, I graduated from high school in June, and I went to work August 23rd, 1976, for the fire department in the community that I grew up in. And I mean, it was just it was the achievement of a lifetime dream very early. And just like Ron, I have no regrets, none whatsoever.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So both of you just already automatically knew from a very young age that that's what you wanted to do. If people wanted, we have some young people that are gaming that might be interested. What should people study? How could, people get involved if they wanted to get into some of the work, as a firefighter, or, doing some of the work that you guys are doing and supporting firefighters and things like that? What should they look to do? Is there an age time to start getting involved, or what can people start doing?
Well, I think there's a variety of options out there. First of all, some of the high schools in our country are providing a firefighter emergency medical technician vocational training course. We have one here where I live. And so instead of taking shop or welding or carpentry, they're taking firefighter and EMT skills at the high school level, getting their firefighter one certification and their emergency medical technician certification. That's a big step to have those out of the way by the time you reach 18 and graduate high school. Departments are looking for people that have that pre-existing training, and that helps them because they can move through the indoctrination process and get out onto the equipment quicker. Another great way to get into the industry is to volunteer, is to start as a volunteer firefighter or emergency medical care provider. Not every community has volunteers, but it's a great way to get the training for free. If you're already out of high school and you're looking for something different, you can get the training for free. You get all of the gear, the equipment, the tools that John was talking about, all that's provided. And what it takes is some time and effort on your part to spend time at the fire station and learn the tools of the trade. Then, of course, there is the career opportunities that are out there. And you could do that a variety of ways. Some colleges offer an associate's degree in fire science. So you could go to college and get a degree in that field and then make application. Most municipalities and cities in Prince George's County and Montgomery County, Maryland. I was in Prince George's, John was in Montgomery. It's a county-wide system made up of 23 for Prince George's 23 municipalities, but it's a civil service style test that is administered for all of the counties, 500 square miles that we covered. And so there is an application process. Most departments will have an advertisement posted that people can make application, and then they sit for a written test. And then if they pass that, they move on to a physical agility or physical ability test that looks at certain body functions and capabilities. There are some mental analysis aspects of it because you're dealing with very tragic situations of being able to cope with it and understand those elements. And then you go through the rigors of whatever the training program is for that department, and then you start riding rigs. And for myself, I started as a volunteer firefighter in Pennsylvania, so I had some of those skills. When I came down to Maryland in 1978, I sat for the test. I went through that process. And what's interesting was I'd taken the test in 1976. So I waited on that list for 2 years to get hired. And some departments there's a huge number, like New York City Fire Department gets thousands of people who sit for their test each year. And smaller departments are less. And each city, municipality, and even states have different requirements on levels of training. For example, Florida, you need to get all the training before you apply for a fire department job. In other locales, they will give it all the training. Then on the wildland side of the things, there are people that have joined the U.S. Forest Service as federal firefighters. There are contract employees who work on the aviation units and as contract firefighters. And then there are individuals that may work in a volunteer fire service or a career service that does what's called an urban, wildland urban interface, where they're structural firefighters that get sent to provide support in the wildland community, and they would go through a hiring process as well. So there's a lot of ways to get into the business. The best thing to do though is do some research, check out the application process, figure out the type of fire service or firefighting you want to do. All of it usually includes a lot of emergency medical training, and then follow your heart. Go for it.
Awesome. John, we got three times this question has come in. What is it like to turn on the siren and have people getting out of the way? That people are asking, what is that like to flip that and to get all that noise happening and get the engine out running and rolling forward? Is it quite the experience the first time you get to throw that siren on?
Yes, the short answer is yes. What you come to realize is there is an opportunity for you to interact with the public in that realm that nobody else gets to do. So you want to be respectful of people. That truck is coming, it's making a lot of noise. It might be the first time they've ever encountered it in their lives. So you want to leave them with the best of impressions. But it's the tools of the work. I'm sure I've done a little bit of call to duty with one of my grandsons. All those buttons and things like that will do different things. Well, the sirens on the truck and the air horn buttons will also do the same things. But there is and continues to be a little bit of a rush of adrenaline when you're getting ready to go out on the road. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever received from a very influential mentor of mine was act like you've been there before. So you don't do anything reckless or foolish or put anybody else at risk.
Got it. I guess that takes us back to being a little kid. The first thing you want to do is blow the horns and flip switches and everything like that. I think that's a universal truth for a young, as a young person. Have you guys ever had somewhere where had a fire started by a PC? Have you ever responded somewhere where the culprit was a PC that caught on fire?
Oh, yeah.
Say, John, go ahead. Yeah, I have. I'm sure John is as well.
Yeah, they're electronics. There's heat involved. They're made by humans, so they will fail, just like everything else does. I can't say that it happens a lot. What I've experienced is usually the battery backup pack or something like that will overheat. But I can remember one computer unit that did fail in an office building that caused a fire.
Wow. How about you, Ron?
Well, I would add to that also. I worked at the College Park Station, which is the University of Maryland, and so we've had some dorm incidents where laptop overheated, and a lot of times it's a battery pack or the charging unit is not put in a place where it gets enough air, but or the fan motor shorts out and then the unit overheats. But the bigger piece is those multiple outlet plugs where people try to plug 25 things into one outlet on the wall. And you walk in and they have those 3-foot strips with that little plastic multi-outlet, and then another one, and then another one, and then sooner you've got 25 things running off of one circuit. So I've seen more of that than I've seen of PC fires, but oftentimes there's a PC somewhere plugged into that chain of events. And so, being cognizant of that, like, you're laughing a little bit. Did you We need to get a video of your home maybe and see what's going on in your office.
Exactly. Oh yes, there's some you know, you got to daisy chain some things together every once in a while to make
Yeah,
something work.
yeah.
Not
That's
realizing that's
the
not
key.
good.
And so the only thing I would say is, and this is the one tip I would highly recommend, that if you're going to do anything with electronics, make sure that it's UL certified.
Got it.
Underwriter Laboratories does a testing process. Unfortunately, there is a lot of products out on the market that aren't certified to the certain level of safety standards. You're buying cheap, but I'll be honest, you get what you pay for. And I've seen more fires as a result of uncertified products or products that don't meet the electrical standards relative to electricity being the cause of the fire. I've seen more of them than anything else that I've seen,
Got it.
and that's because of the construction of it is done solely to keep the cost at the basic minimum, but sometimes that basic minimum leads to tragedy.
Got it. Got it. We have a bunch more questions, and folks are really enjoying the stream. We're scheduled for just another 5 minutes or so. Do you guys have a few minutes that we can continue for maybe a little bit longer, or
Sure.
do you know we want to accommodate? Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, because we have some more questions. One question is, you know, usually these events are in person, so you might have upwards thousands of kids lined up in big establishments, big, almost stadium-sized rooms and big rooms where lots of PCs are going on. And we have seen fire marshals come in to just make sure things are set up properly. What are they looking for? You know, if we have a 1,000 PCs set up in multiple rooms in a hotel, hotel boardroom, not boardrooms, but in hotel suites set up for a gaming event, what are you guys looking for? The fire marshal when they come in, what are they looking for?
Good.
John,
do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. What they'll be looking for is first of all for the safety of the people that are there. So the fire marshal's job is to save lives. He does it in a much different way, or she does it in a much different way than the firefighter with the gear does. So they'll be looking to make sure that the electrical outlets are not overloaded. They'll be looking to make sure there are not too many people in a specific area that couldn't escape if something was to go wrong. They'll be looking to make sure that any materials that are used, any decorations or things like that meet the fire code. People they're not trying to destroy anybody's fun, but they're also trying to make sure that in the event that something goes wrong, that all those people will be able to get out with their lives.
Got it. When a lot of the folks that attend these events, are looking, how could they look to make it your guys' job easier or the marshal's job easier? What can they look for to make things safer in those type of gaming, in these type of events that, the individual can maybe look to check to see to make sure?
Well, the first thing is, and I talk about this a lot to everybody. When you go to any kind of public assembly, and that's a category of multiple people in one area, whether it's a gaming event in a ballroom at a hotel or a conference center or a training class or a meeting, or it's a nightclub or it's a bar or restaurant, when you go in, you should first look to see what are the other ways out should an emergency occur. Are the exit lights on? That's why they're there, to tell you that this is a means to get out of the building. People tend to, unfortunately, when an emergency occurs, try to go out the exact same way they came in because they haven't paid attention when they've entered a structure, other ways out. And we've seen that happen in a variety of incidents. A Station nightclub in Rhode Island, everybody was in that establishment when the pyrotechnics lit off the stage, and everybody tried to go back out that one front door. There was other exits that were marked, but people didn't look for that, and the smoke started to build, and it ensued in panic. And we've seen that with other tragic fires across the country. So the very first thing is to be aware of your surroundings, and if depending upon how the gaming is set up, if there's rows and tables and desks and other furnishings, understand how to kind of maneuver your way, whatever that pathway might be. Secondly is, look and see where the fire alarm control arm is, where that pull station is, so that if there is an emergency, somebody alerts all the occupants in the building that there's an emergency going on. Another is a fire extinguisher. We could go in a lot of discussions about, whether they should or shouldn't. But the idea is to look at the safety equipment that's been built into that structure, look at the means of egress, be aware of your surroundings, and make a plan. Take a second to make a plan on how you're going to get out if something should happen. And then it's the other common things, relative to the overloading of circuits, and if you're working equipment, checking it to make sure that it's not getting hot, making sure that there's no discoloring of the plastic outer casing due to heat. Kind of be that educated consumer that I talked about earlier. Be aware of those surroundings, and if you see something, don't be embarrassed, don't be concerned, say something. TSA uses that language at the airports all the time. Numerous times we've had incidents where people saw something that didn't look right, but they were embarrassed. They weren't sure. They saw what they saw, so they don't say anything. And then unfortunately, the incident escalates and becomes catastrophic. And when you go back and do the investigative pieces into those, people say, well, I saw this, but I didn't really want to say anything because I didn't want to disrupt everything. The reality is, if it's better to say, hey, this doesn't look right, and have the management, have the leadership of the entity, the people, the organizing, go in and investigate and say it's okay, or have them say we've got a problem, we need to get everybody out before it gets to be catastrophic. So that's a major element. I'm sure, John, you've got some other things you might want to add.
I think you hit the very core of them on the head. I was going to talk about, don't be afraid to dial 911 if there's an emergency. I know in a little bit of experience I've had with some assembly occupancy type things, especially when you get to party environments and things, don't give the fire marshal a hassle. If the fire marshal says you need to do something, they're not doing that because they want to ruin what's going on. That they want to make sure that everybody has a great time, leaves the event, and then can go to the next one. So support that fire marshal in their efforts. Look at the fire code in advance, and then be prepared, because not everybody gets to see everything all the time. But the fire marshal or the code enforcement officer that comes in there is trained to make sure people will survive.
And that's their job. That's all they're trying to do is to make a successful event, and that people could then go home and come back another day for another event.
Absolutely. Follow up, Ron. We need to know, do you have a motorcycle?
Actually, I do not.
Do not.
True story. I have tinkered with that a couple of times and said, you know what? I am most likely going to hurt myself, so I'm going to stick to things with four wheels.
Four wheels.
Just gotta be honest. I went down that road. It wasn't a good experience. Fortunately, nothing serious, but life is too short. And so I, like John, and we could even talk about that, our passions are old fire trucks. So we both have old fire trucks, and
Really?
they go pretty fast, but I like that four-wheeled, everything being flat and settled and a little bit of balance for that aspect.
Oh, so do you both own classic fire trucks?
We do, yes.
And a so it's a you could collect them. From how far back do you guys have trucks?
Well, my chief's car is a 1931 Model A Ford, and then my oldest pumper is a 1948 American LaFrance. But John's got a great pumper he'll tell you about.
Yeah, I have a 1937 Seagrave pumper that came out of a little town that probably wasn't really too far away from Ron's neck of the woods originally. It started outside of Pittsburgh, made its way to eastern Pennsylvania, where it stayed in service until the 1980s. And the deal I struck with my wife was if I could find one that would fit in the garage, because she didn't want to become a classic car widow, that I could get it. And the 37 grade fits in the garage.
And what is a pumper? What does that mean?
It's the standard fire truck. It's the truck that carries the hose and the water, has all the gauges on the side of it.
Got it.
So yeah, doesn't have a roof. It's an open cab. So like several of Ron's, I'm like him. I like those 4 points of contact. So I get all the thrill of riding a motorcycle with the wind in my hair, but there's 6 wheels on the ground.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is there a misconception about fire extinguishers? And if so, what is one? What, people, I think they have tags on them when they say to, you replace the CO2 or whatever. But are there some other misconceptions that people should know about in dealing with fire extinguishers?
There are. First of all, there are different types of extinguishers for different types of fires. And so you have, standard combustibles, you have electrical, you have flammable liquids. And so it's best to get an extinguisher that's rated A, B, or C. And it's an ABC multi-purpose extinguisher. There's a lot of discussions about extinguishers and calling 911. So from a fire perspective, the first thing I got to say is that there isn't an issue with trying to extinguish the fire yourself, providing you make the call to 911. I can't tell you how many times that I've shown up at a scene of a fire and there's 20 fire extinguishers laying in the front yard of this building where everybody that lived in these apartments were trying to fight this fire and nobody called the fire department. And unfortunately, the fire got well out of hand. But it is good to have a small extinguisher in your home. That's what it's intended for. Kitchen fires are the leading cause of fires in residential structures. But besides extinguishers, if you have a burning pot, the best thing to do is put a lid on it. Don't try to move that burning grease. We see that all the time. Frying pan catches fire. People pick up the frying pan, try to carry it outside, and then they spill the burning flammable grease that is ignited all across the kitchen floor, and it ignites the kitchen off. So there are some basic tips. We were talking about that earlier. There's some basic tips. If you want some of the greatest information on that, the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, who does Sparky the Fire Dog and the whole fire prevention effort, and we're getting ready to go into Fire Prevention Week anyway, go to their website. You can link that through the Fallen Firefighter Foundation website to get some of those safety tips for your home. And that's a working smoke alarm, a working carbon monoxide detector. If your community is into the residential sprinkler components and the construction, that's awesome. You can get your home retrofitted with sprinklers to help extinguish a fire. Having a working fire extinguisher, making sure that it's rated for the type of fires that you're going to encounter, making sure that it's been inspected and has the pressure to deliver the extinguishing agent. Having an exit drill, which is we talked about, that means of egress, that whether it's a public assembly or your house, and then that meeting place outside of your home, so that when everybody knows everybody's out. We often see people think that one of the family members or one of the pets are still in the house. They go back in. That family member, that pet's outside, but they're in the back of the house. People in the front don't know that, so have a meeting place so you got kind of count heads, know everybody's there, and it's all those basic safety tips that are out there that really will help save your life. And so
Absolutely.
whether it's an extinguisher or a smoke alarm or whatever it might be, there are tricks to that trade, and you need to go to the sources, and they're all partners of ours, and they work with us in a variety of fashions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is fantastic information because I know, in non-COVID times, gamers would get together. And so that's a great reminder to say, hey, if something does go wrong, let's meet out front or, out back so we can know exactly what's kind of going on in case of an emergency. That is fantastic. So another question that has come in here is this: you guys work in as a firefighter in situations where a lot of people are trying to get help in their worst times, and to deal with families that are struggling with the fallen firefighters. How do you guys stay positive throughout that? I think that, and this could expand to, even in the gaming community, with COVID and the civil unrest that we're seeing across the nation and all the kind of the bad that has gone through 2020. What keeps you guys positive? What keeps the organization kind of stepping up and making it through difficult times and helping people when it's at their worst? What is that? What skill set did you not think that you needed to do that work? And how do you stay positive and keep yourself together? Ron, let's start with you.
Sure, well, thanks. I think that the first piece that we try to do within the foundation, and we promote this within the fire community, is the peer interventions. And John can talk a lot about this because he works on our behavioral health components within our industry, and he's got a lot of real life experiences when he was with the Charleston, South Carolina fire department when the firefighters died at the sofa store fire. But the understanding of the behavioral health components that are critical to help people find a grounding source when they see something traumatic occur. And oftentimes in the fire service, it's the kitchen table. That fire station is where we live, work, and play for whenever our shift is or whenever our volunteer time is. But you will see that the gathering point is the kitchen table, and whether it's during meals or it's in the evenings, but that is when we kind of chat and talk. And we have some programmatic pieces that helps the supervisors and others to evaluate their buddies, the rest of the crew. And that goes back to that see something, say something comment that we made earlier, is that peer intervention. If you work with somebody, no matter what business you're in, but if you work closely with somebody, you know when they're having a bad day, you know when things aren't going right, and just reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, are you okay? Can I help you with something?" means a world of difference. And so we do that with our families of the fallen firefighters by using family members of fallen firefighters from previous years. We introduce them to the new families every new batch that we get. So our older family members, not in age, but just in time with us. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Our legacy members who have been down that road and have walked in those shoes of these new families, we try to match them up by relationships. A wife with a wife, a father with a father, a child with a child, because who better than somebody who's been through it and has had some time and distance between the incident and where they are in the recovery process to help that new person who is just completely out of kilter because they just don't know what to do next. And so that's the basis of some of the programming we do. And I want John to talk about what we're doing with stress first aid and some of the other programs that we have because they're phenomenal pieces. So I'll let John kind of run with that a little bit.
Oh, thanks, Ron. I'd have to go back to the way I was brought up, and that was you think of others before you think of yourself, and that's kind of how my parents raised me. So, carrying that forward, I get up in the morning and I try to think about what can I do today to make somebody else's life a little bit better in some way, shape, or fashion. The programs within the foundation, in the part of the shop that I work in, I work on the firefighter side of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. The programs that we have are all designed in some way, shape, or form to help firefighters either get better at their job, stay safer at their job, take care of themselves and each other in a variety of fashions. So Ron mentioned the Stress First Aid program. That's a program that's designed to teach firefighters to look for signs and signals in other firefighters that may be subtle, but they will help you recognize that firefighter might need some help. Firefighters are very proud people. They're so involved in helping others, they don't think they need help. But then the weight of everything that they experience can be pretty heavy. Or they could come across an event that plays on their mind a lot different than others. The other programs that we have also revolve around what happens after a firefighter dies, because regardless of how hard and how well we do our job, there are always going to be circumstances beyond our control, and a firefighter will lose their life. So we have a new series of programs and a revised series of programs for, say, the chief of the department that loses a member, because every chief that I know spend every day trying to keep all their firefighters alive. No fire chief that I know have ever woke up in the morning and said, "Well, I want 3 of my members to die today." We also have programs for the incident commander, the person that's in charge of an event where a firefighter dies. And we've just launched, or we're launching a new program for the company officer, that unit leader that loses a firefighter. And we're following the same model as on the family program side of the house, where firefighters who have personally experienced those losses have come back and said, well, I think I have some tools and experience that I can share to help this person get over this terrible tragedy.
Absolutely. That is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, I'm going to have you guys hold on the line because our chapter admin would like to say a few words. But thank you so much. I can't stress enough how honored I am to have been able for the last hour and 15 minutes to talk with Executive Director Chief Ron Sarnecki and Director of Fire Services Programs Chief John Tippett from the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. You could go to their website, firehero.org, scroll down and consider donating to this wonderful organization. We are just thrilled to have both of you. We will be back after a short ad break with some Counter-Strike in just a few minutes. And we had from the stream here, Donna donated $26. And so we're seeing some donations coming in. Ron and John, I can't thank you enough for your time, for the work that you do, not only in the communities that you're in, your firefighting experience, but helping families and the community in dealing with tragedy and keeping us safe and keeping things positive for us. Can't thank you at all. So I'm going to ask that the admin come in and have you guys stay on the line a little bit. But we just thank you for all that you're doing. And we're glad that we're participating in this event with you.
It's been a